The 666 seal. Geronda. How soon will these events take place? They are delayed because of you and because of me. So we may be able to acquire a good spiritual state. God is being patient because if they were to occur now, you and I would be lost. Nowhere in the teaching of Christ is there a specific reference to time. However, sacred scripture does say that the signs of the times will warn us of their coming. We must always be ready and shall see them when the time nears. Then we will be more certain. Time and experience will reveal the events to those who are vigilant. A book came to my attention which had on its cover 3 large sixes. This was done to present the 6 nicely and to familiarize people with it. In time, little by little, the seal will come as well. Geronda. Even the fasteners sewn on clothes are sold in packages that bear the number 666. That devil is at work everywhere. That number has been on credit cards for some time. Now it is on the fasteners. Many use the 666 as a trademark to sell more of their products. One supports the other. In other words, one company, 666 company, will prefer another 666 company. It has been written that when the depiction of a snake biting its tail is published, this will mean that the Jews have taken control of the world. For now, they have put it on a few currency bills. The number 666 has already been a hit in China, in India. Geronda. How do people know about using this number? Saint John the Evangelist knew what the devil was planning to do. Just as the prophets foretold that Christ would be betrayed for 30 pieces of silver, that he would be given vinegar to drink, that his garments would be divided. 2000 years ago he wrote in the book of Revelation that people would be marked with the number 666. He that had understanding, let him count the number of the beast, for it is a number of a man, and his number is 666. For the Jews, the number 666 is a symbol of economy. As mentioned in the Old Testament, the Israelites imposed a specific tax upon the people they conquered through various wars. The annual amount of the tax was 666 talents of gold. Now to subdue the whole world, they are again imposing this taxation number which is connected with their glorious past. That's why they don't want to replace it with another number. In other words, the number 666 is the symbol of Mammon. They borrowed it from the weights of gold, not knowing what St. John says about it in the book of Revelation, but nevertheless it still refers to Mammon. The Gospel says it clearly. Either Christ or Mammon. You cannot serve God and Mammon. Events are progressing accordingly. In America, marked dogs transmit a signal and can be located at no time at all wherever they might be, so they know where each dog is at. Dogs that do not have an identifying mark and are found without an owner are killed by laser. Later they'll start killing people too. Tons of fish have been marked and are being observed through satellites to study their migration patterns. And now a vaccine has been developed to combat a new disease, which will be obligatory and those taking it will be marked. Many people there are already marked with some sort of laser beam on the forehead, on the arm. Later on, anyone who is not marked with the number 666 will not be able to either buy or sell, to get a loan, to get a job, and so forth. My thinking tells me that this is the system through which the Antichrist has chosen to take over the world, and people who are not part of this system won't be able to find work and so on. Whether black or white or red, in other words, everyone he will take over through an economic system that controls the global economy, and only those who have accepted the seal, the mark of the number 666, will be able to participate in business dealings. But what will become of the people who are sealed? An expert was telling me that laser beams are harmful to people. People who are marked will attract the rays of the sun and suffer such harm that they will gnaw their tongues in pain. Those who are not sealed will have a better fate than the others, because Christ will help those who are not sealed. And this is no small matter. Geronda, when will Christ help them? Later? No, right then. Geronda, if they are not able to buy and sell, how will they be better off? You see, God has a way, and I know something about it. Well, this matter has preoccupied me a great deal, and then he sent me the telegram. Oh, how God provides for us indeed. Geronda, why is the seal also called an inscription or engraving? Because the seal will not be superficial. What does engraving mean? Does it not mean deeply incised straight lines? The seal will be a slash, placed first on all the products, and then in time, with laser beams, it will be enforced on people. 2. On their hand or their forehead. 2 years ago I spoke with a doctor from Toronto about the sealing, and how he tells me that according to a newspaper article he read, instead of an ID card they will require some sort of impression on the hand. Things are progressing, but we cannot exactly say that this or that will be done. Again, certain television sets which have recently been imported into Greece have a component which can observe those watching the television. Soon those who have a television will be watching their television, and at the same time they themselves will be watched. That is, those watching will be watched. Their whole life, what they say, what they do, everything will be monitored through computers. Do you see what a dictatorship the devil has devised? In Brussels there is an entire building with a 666 where they house the computer. That computer can monitor billions of people. The entire population of the world is approximately 6 billion. Confession for everyone at the push of a button. Some Europeans have resisted these developments because they fear a global dictatorship. We, the Orthodox Christians, resist these developments because we do not want the Antichrist nor the dictatorship, of course. Serious events are awaiting us, but they will not stand for long. Just as Orthodox Christianity was not wiped out by communism and other enemies in the past, so it will not be wiped out now.